Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 261, The Earth Immortal Realm, Foreign Powers, Quotas. TL, Yu Yong. PR, Etude, freely enter and exit the Earth Immortal Realm. Yi Tian stared at the ring, feeling a certain longing in his heart. Although the Earth Immortal Realm had fewer resources compared to Earth's main world, it was more suitable for human habitation. Many Emperor-level powerhouses lived here, allowing for better exchange and communication. Some rare resources were only available in the Earth Immortal Realm, as it housed ancient civilization sects and strong individuals. For Yi Tian, the Earth Immortal Realm was particularly attractive. He could copy others' talents, and with so many strong individuals in the Earth Immortal Realm, there were surely a few with excellent talents. For instance, the Morning Star level sword technique talent he dreamt of must exist in the Earth Immortal Realm. By copying another Morning Star level sword technique talent, he could elevate his own to the Moonlight level. Furthermore, the path beyond the Emperor level, which Zonghai Super Base did not have, required specific knowledge before he dared to attempt reaching the God level. Otherwise, choosing the wrong path during cultivation could lead to regretful consequences. These were the reasons he wanted to enter the Earth Immortal Realm. Heavenly Emperor of 10,000 Laws, this Earth Immortal Realm ring is now yours. Emperor Ling Fei gave Yi Tian the ring of the Earth Immortal Realm and said, the Earth Immortal Realm ring is crafted from a miraculous material of the Earth Immortal Realm, mixed with a hint of the realm's world power. Even our Glory Pavilion does not possess the crafting technique, so each of the 12 slots is extremely precious. Please take good care of it, Heavenly Emperor of 10,000 Laws. Thank you, Emperor Ling Fei. Yi Tian accepted the Earth Immortal Realm ring and expressed his gratitude. Knowing that Yi Tian had no intention of joining the Glory Temple, Emperor Ling Fei did not bring up the topic and shared limited information with him. Granting Yi Tian a slot in the Earth Immortal Realm and explaining some of its aspects was already a friendly gesture. Yi Tian naturally did not inquire further. After bidding farewell to Emperor Ling Fei, he left the Glory Temple station. The Earth Immortal Realm's Yuan-Chi is not much weaker than Earth's main world, and its vast area makes it an ideal place for ordinary people. Unfortunately, entering the Earth Immortal Realm is too difficult for the common folk, who lack even the qualifications to use the teleportation array. The weak cannot withstand the tearing force of the teleportation array. Only Grandmasters and above can use the teleportation array of the Glory Temple. If a large number of such powerful individuals migrated, Earth would be defenseless against the beasts. Yi Tian thought to himself. Considering these issues, the emperors had sealed off the existence of the Earth Immortal Realm, and many emperors were unaware of it. Only those above the 6-star emperor level knew about the Earth Immortal Realm. For now, Yi Tian could only enter the Earth Immortal Realm alone, unable to bring others with him. Of course, the people of Tian Pavilion and his wife, Empress Yu, had no real benefits from entering the Earth Immortal Realm. They were better off staying on Earth, especially since Zonghai Super Base was currently safe and resource-rich. There was no need to enter the Earth Immortal Realm. The Earth Immortal Realm was only attractive to those emperors who had undergone a major transformation, seeking to trade for treasures from external forces that could change their talents or boost their strength significantly. The Earth Immortal Realm was vast, with many cities. Yun City, one of the cities controlled by the Glory Temple, was where Yi Tian was taken. The headquarters of the Glory Temple was located elsewhere. However, the headquarters city of the Glory Temple was off-limits to external emperors, and since Yi Tian did not join the Glory Temple, he was not taken to the headquarters but only to Yun City. Although small, Yun City had teleportation arrays connecting to other cities. Yi Tian naturally did not linger in a small place like Yun City. After some inquiries, he took a teleportation array to another city. Dongbo City. Established 80 years ago, Dongbo City was vast, making Yun City look insignificant in comparison. The area of Dongbo City was about the size of a large base on Earth, with a population of about 8 million. However, not everyone could enter Dongbo City. Only martial warriors and their families were allowed to join. Once a family no longer had a martial warrior, becoming entirely civilian, they would be relocated out of Dongbo City to other cities. Due to such regulations, Dongbo City was extremely prosperous. One of the main reasons many martial warriors flocked to Dongbo City was its geographical location. Situated between the Dongli mountain range and Bibo Lake was an exceptional place for cultivators with mystic-level water-based talents. Emperors with such talents could cultivate much faster here. The Dongli mountain range was rich in resources and home to some ferocious beasts. Although their numbers paled in comparison to those in Earth's main world, this area was a treasure trove where many martial warriors sought cultivation resources. It was these advantages that made Dongbo City so flourishing. Another advantage of Dongbo City was its location between the eastern and northern cultivation realms. The eastern cultivation realm referred to the powers mainly from Huasha, while the northern cultivation realm centered around the super bases in the North Bear region. Besides these, the Earth Immortal realm also had western and southern cultivation realms. The central cultivation realm was a common area for the four major cultivation realms and also served as a trading zone. Yi Tian chose not to go to the central cultivation realm but to Dongbo City, where he could gather plenty of information in a much safer environment. According to the information he had, the central cultivation realm was very chaotic. Outside the cities, there was always the risk of attacks from other forces. Yi Tian was not afraid of attacks but wanted to learn more about the Earth Immortal realm first. Knowing oneself and the enemy ensures victory in every battle. The Earth Immortal realm was not like Earth's main world. It was even more dangerous than the world of ferocious beasts, as it housed powerful emperors up to the 8-star and even 9-star emperor level. Yi Tian was well aware of his own strength. While he could battle a 7-star emperor, facing an 8-star emperor would mean escape, and against a 9-star emperor, there might not even be a chance to flee. Therefore, he was not arrogant enough to consider himself invincible in the world. Dongbo City, Dongbo Commerce Association. Yi Tian came here to see what good items were available. After browsing around, he had to admit that there were indeed many great items here. For instance, Morning Star level weapons, Morning Star level array diagrams, and even some rare pills and talent-enhancing treasures were available for sale, but they were very expensive. The currency here was yuan-chi stones, and a single treasure could cost thousands or even tens of thousands of yuan-chi stones, unaffordable for ordinary martial warriors. At that moment, the conversation of some saint-level martial warriors caught Yi Tian's attention. Did you know, the Earth Immortal Realm's King, Saint, and Emperor rankings have been updated? Updated? So soon? Isn't it supposed to be updated annually? How come it's so soon? It's said that a prodigy has risen, prompting the major forces to update the rankings together. Let's hurry and buy 3 copies of the rankings to check out. Martial warriors at the Dongbo Commerce Association were purchasing the newly updated rankings. Yi Tian's expression changed. He too approached the counter selling the rankings and bought a copy of the Emperor ranking. He had no interest in the other rankings. Soon, he got his hands on the Emperor ranking and started to go through it. Instantly, a dense list of great Emperor names appeared on the Emperor ranking. And Yi Tian found Emperor Ling Fei's name on it. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 262, Dongbo City, the Earth Immortal Realms Emperor Ranking. TL, Yu Yong. PR, Etude, Emperor Ranking, 72nd place. Emperor Ling Fei, 7-star Emperor level combat power. Yi Tian was greatly surprised to see this ranking on the Emperor list. Emperor Ling Fei, ranked 7th on the Glory Emperor list for his formidable combat power, now only placed 72nd in the Earth Immortal Realms Emperor list, illustrating the abundance of powerful figures on this list. Swoosh! Yi Tian's gaze shifted to the first place on the Emperor list, and an unfamiliar name caught his eye. Emperor ranking, 1st place, Golden War Emperor, 8-star Emperor level combat power. The Golden War Emperor, born as Lane Harus, was his title. The Emperor list in the Earth Immortal Realm doesn't use real names, only titles. If Yi Tian were to enter the Earth Immortal Realm's Emperor list, the name that would appear would be the Heavenly Emperor of 10,000 Laws. There's only one 8-star Emperor on the Earth Immortal Realm's Emperor list, probably from the War God Temple mentioned before by the Void Breaker Sword Emperor. But outside forces in the Earth Immortal Realm have 8 and even 9-star Emperors, obviously not included in this list. Yi Tian understood the rationale of these external forces. They wouldn't reveal their true power levels, naturally excluding their Emperor-level figures from the Emperor list. This gave Earth's emperors a very mysterious perception of them. Information about the emperors on the emperor list was scarce, and Yi Tian was unclear about their talents. He wanted to find an emperor or other warriors with Morning Star level sword technique talent. The Void Breaker Sword Emperor should be very familiar with the other emperors, but it wasn't feasible for him to inquire, as it would be hard to explain. Perhaps the Dongbo Trading Company sells information about warriors. Yi Tian speculated. So, he asked a staff member of the Dongbo Trading Company and soon received an affirmative answer. The Dongbo Trading Company indeed sold information. In a room, Yi Tian met a person in charge from the Dongbo Trading Company, a female saint-level warrior. This saint-level female was named Zhang Qing, a very ordinary name, but her strength was not weak, possessing 2 mystic-level talents, Mystic Speed Talent and Mystic Ice Talent. Respected Emperor, what information would you like to purchase? Zhang Qing asked very politely. I want detailed information about the strong figures on the Emperor list, especially those with Morning Star level sword technique talent. I assume your Dongbo Trading Company has it, right? Yi Tian inquired. Zhang Qing looked curiously at Yi Tian, wondering why he wanted to buy this information. It's rare for emperors to buy such information because emperors generally know these details from conversing with each other. Unless, could it be that the emperor has just entered the Earth Immortal realm? Zhang Qing blurted out, but as soon as she said it, she regretted it. Asking a customer about their background was a big taboo. Boom, a faint aura enveloped Zhang Qing, clearly emanating from Yi Tian. Is this how the Dongbo Trading Company conducts business? Don't ask what shouldn't be asked. Yi Tian said coldly. Emperor, please calm your anger, I was wrong. I can offer you this information at half price. Zhang Qing quickly apologized. Yi Tian withdrew his aura and then asked, how much for this information? Zhang Qing pondered for a moment, then replied, my lord, if it's just general information, it's not expensive, 1,000 yuan qi stones. But if you want to know their talents, current activities, and other intelligence, it's more valuable. The focus is on the information about those with Morning Star level sword technique talent. Yi Tian stated, I understand. Zhang Qing nodded, then quoted a price, 300,000 yuan qi stones for all the information the Dongbo Trading Company has on all Morning Star level sword technique talents and the strong figures on the Emperor list. Additionally, I can authorize a 50% discount, so you'll only need to pay 150,000 yuan qi stones. Not too expensive. When can I receive the information? Yi Tian asked. 3 days, Zhang Qing replied. We have all the information about the emperors here, but for the Morning Star level sword technique talent, it's not complete. We need to contact various branches to gather and investigate these details, which takes some time. A deposit of 10,000 yuan qi stones is required, as per the rules of our Dongbo Trading Company. We hope the emperor understands. Before Zhang Qing could finish, Yi Tian tossed over a storage bag. freewebnovel.com. Alright, here are 10,000 yuan qi stones. I'll come back for the information in 3 days. After saying this, Yi Tian turned and left. In the following 3 days, Yi Tian did not return to Zonghai Superbase but wandered around the various cities in the Earth Immortal Realm, gathering quite a bit of information and deepening his understanding of the realm. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Yi Tian returned to the Dongbo City's Dongbo Trading Company, paid the remaining 140,000 yuan qi stones, and finally got the information he wanted. In a private room of a tavern, Yi Tian sipped on wine while browsing through the recently purchased information. The files were extensive, with comprehensive details on each emperor, including their talents and some hidden trump cards, though not entirely certain. Yi Tian didn't rush to look through the information about the emperors. He was eager to read about those with the Morning Star level sword technique talent. 7 names. Yi Tian saw the details of 7 individuals, including his own. Yi Tian, Heavenly Emperor of 10,000 Laws, is suspected to possess Morning Star level sword technique talent, top-tier spatial talent, mystic level speed talent, mystic level defense talent, mystic level strength talent. Seeing his own file, Yi Tian smiled. He knew his identity must have been exposed, but it didn't matter. Even if the Dongbo Trading Company knew, they would keep it secret and dare not offend him. The Dongbo Trading Company might be strong, backed by several external forces, but they wouldn't casually offend a 6-star Emperor-level powerhouse. Unfortunately, even with the Dongbo Trading Company's extensive intelligence network, they can't uncover all my talents, only those I choose to reveal. Yi Tian shook his head. He continued reading and saw the information about the Void Breaker Sword Emperor. Unfortunately, he had already copied the Void Breaker Sword Emperor's Morning Star level sword technique talent and couldn't do so again. Next, he looked at the details of the other 5 individuals with Morning Star level sword technique talent. 10/Sword Emperor, Morning Star level sword technique talent, one of the emperors of the Northern Realms North Bear Alliance, ranked 83rd on the Emperor list, a 7-star Emperor level powerhouse. A prominent figure of Earth's main world, rarely in the Earth Immortal Realm, current whereabouts unknown. Blood Sword Emperor, Morning Star level sword technique talent, founder of the Southern Realms Blood Sect, a significant figure of Earth's main world, ranked 93rd on the Emperor list, a 7-star Emperor level powerhouse. Currently stationed at the Saha Super Base in the main world. Mad Sword War Emperor, Morning Star level sword technique talent, a loose cultivator from the Eastern Realm, a native Earth Immortal Realm Emperor, Lord of Mad Saber City. Currently missing. Holy Light Sword Saint, Morning Star level sword technique talent, a saint level being from the Western Realms War God Temple, and a native saint of the Earth Immortal Realm. Currently in the Ancient Civilization's relic, the Azure Sword Sect. War God Temple's Imperial Son, Pies Harus, son of the Golden War Emperor, Morning Star level sword technique talent. Currently in the War God Temple. After reading about these 5 individuals with Morning Star level sword technique talent, Yi Tian frowned. The information was there, but these 5 were not easy to find. The 10/Sword Emperor was not in the Earth Immortal Realm, and his exact location was unknown. The Blood Sword Emperor was stationed at the Saha Super Base in the main world. As the Emperor of Zonghai Super Base in the Huasha region, it would be risky and too conspicuous to enter the Saha Super Base unannounced. Undoubtedly, the Blood Saber Emperor was not a suitable target. Although the Mad Saber War Emperor was in the Earth Immortal Realm, he was currently away from his city, and waiting for him could be indefinite. As for the Imperial Son of the War God Temple, he was heavily guarded within the temple, making it impossible for Yi Tian to approach and copy his Morning Star level sword technique talent. That leaves only one target. Yi Tian's gaze settled on the Holy Light Sword Saint. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 263, 7 Morning Star level sword technique talents. TL, Yu Yong. PR, Etude. The Holy Light Sword Saint was just a saint-level being. Although a saint of the War God Temple, he was not currently in the War God Temple, but in a place called the Ruins of the Azure Sword Sect. The intelligence report also introduced the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect. These ruins are the legacy of an ancient civilization sect known as the Azure Sword Sect. As time passed, the Azure Sword Sect itself disappeared, but the ruins remained, containing numerous sword technique inheritances. Only martial warriors below the Emperor level were allowed to enter the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect. Those surpassing the Emperor level who intrude will be detected and forcibly expelled. The ruins of the Azure Sword Sect are currently controlled by several external forces and open only once every 10 years. This time, many saint-level swordsmen have entered the ruins. The Holy Light Sword Saint, highly interested in the sword techniques and other treasures within the ruins, entered them. The ruins of the Azure Sword Sect are located in the Central Cultivation Realm. It seems I must make a trip to the Central Cultivation Realm. Yi Tian murmured. He was determined to obtain the Morning Star level swordsmanship talent. Moreover, he was very interested in the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect, and knowing this news was an unexpected gain. Other Emperor-level warriors may not be able to enter the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect, but that does not mean he can't. Yi Tian used the teleportation array of Dongbo City and, after several transfers, finally arrived at Azure City in the Central Cultivation Realm. Azure City, famous for the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect, usually had few warriors, but it became very prosperous during the period when the ruins were open. However, outside Azure City, it was extremely chaotic, with frequent incidents of murder and robbery. The ruins of the Azure Sword Sect are located 300,000 kilometers west of Azure City. After arriving in Azure City, Yi Tian disguised himself as an unremarkable young man, even controlling his cultivation level, lowering his aura to that of a saint. For an Emperor level, such concealed aura was easy to detect, but not for saints who would simply think Yi Tian was a newly advanced saint-level warrior. Swoosh! Yi Tian flew out of Azure City, heading towards the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect. If this were the main Earth world, a saint could quickly reach the ruins of the Azure Sword Sect, but in the Immortal Realm, the suppression of the rules made the speed of a saint level very slow, and crossing 300,000 kilometers also took some time. Yi Tian flew at the speed of an ordinary saint, covering about 100,000 kilometers, when he detected several saint-level figures. Got some bait on the hook. Yi Tian smiled slyly. He intentionally disguised himself as an ordinary saint, not out of boredom, but to obtain a saint-level body. He couldn't bring himself to kill a human saint level on purpose, but if a saint had intentions against him, then he wouldn't feel any psychological pressure in killing them. He could use his top-tier soul transfer talent to erase the other's soul and occupy their body, thus becoming a saint himself. Then, using the body of that saint to enter the ruins of the Azure Sword sect would be foolproof. The Azure Sword sect was open for only a month, and 10 days had already passed, leaving 20 days. His soul transfer talent could last a month, enough to complete his plan. Soon, 5 saints arrived and surrounded Yi Tian. These 5 saints all had Western faces, obviously warriors from the Western cultivation realm. "Kill him," one of the saints spoke. However, just as the 5 saints were about to make their move, a voice permeated the void. Spatial compression. Yi Tian stretched out his hand, and space solidified, compressing the bodies of 4 of the saints. In an instant, the bodies of the 4 saints were completely compressed into a mist of blood, dissipating between heaven and earth. As they died too quickly, the 4 of them didn't even have time to scream. Emperor level. The last remaining saint was filled with immense fear. He never imagined that the seemingly weak saint they targeted was actually an emperor in disguise. An emperor level disguising as a saint, was this some kind of joke? Had he known Yi Tian was at emperor level, he would never have dared to target him. He wanted to beg for mercy, but under the spatial confinement, he couldn't move at all, not even able to speak. At that moment, his consciousness began to sink. Yi Tian had initiated his hypnotism talent on him, successfully hypnotizing the man to willingly follow him. The target for the top-tier soul transfer talent had to be a living being, not a corpse, so he didn't kill this saint. The reason he spared this particular saint was because the others were too weak in cultivation, while this one had already developed 86% of his deep brain domain. By occupying his body, Yi Tian could exert powerful strength. Not long after, Yi Tian brought this saint back to Azure City, rented a set of rooms for a month, and then performed the top-tier soul transfer talent on the saint in the room. Boom! Yi Tian's soul entered the other's soul sea, instantly erasing his soul and completely taking over his body. A few minutes later, Yi Tian got accustomed to the new body and then activated his disguise talent, disguising himself as an ordinary-looking middle-aged Western man. He did not use the original appearance of this body to avoid being recognized by the body's friends or acquaintances, which would have been troublesome. Yi Tian's original body was unlikely to encounter any trouble in this inn, as no one dared to cause significant disturbances in Azure City. Let's call this body Poland for the time being. Yi Tian named the new body he had occupied and immediately left with a Morning Star level blade and some simple belongings. This time, he encountered no trouble on the road and smoothly arrived at the ruins of the Azure Sword sect. The ruins of the Azure Sword sect were located atop a mountain range, the entire peak shrouded in a huge array, obscuring the view inside from the outside, with only some majestic buildings faintly visible. This array was connected to the entire ruins of the Azure Sword sect, even the land itself. Moonlight Level Array. Yi Tian recognized it at a glance. With his Moonlight Level Array talent and a heritage of arrays, although he had spent less time studying array patterns, he had barely stepped into the level of a Morning Star Level Array Master. If he couldn't discern anything about this grand array, it would be a disservice to his Moonlight Level Array talent. According to Yi Tian's assessment, this Moonlight Level Array was somewhat incomplete, likely due to the passage of time. The fact that the Azure Sword sect could set up a Moonlight Level Array indicated that they had a Moonlight Level Array Master, or at least knew one, which spoke volumes about the sect's past strength. Those external forces probably have the power to break this incomplete Moonlight Level defensive array, but once broken, the ruins would self-destruct, losing their value. That's why those forces haven't destroyed this defensive array and instead open it only once every 10 years. Yi Tian speculated. Outside the ruins of the Azure Sword sect, there was a fortress, vaguely emanating the aura of emperors, probably the emperors stationed here by the major external forces. Any saint wishing to enter the ruins of the Azure Sword sect must purchase a token. This token, through the arrays set up by the major forces, would allow access to the mountain range and, subsequently, the ruins. freewebnovel.com. Exploiting these ruins for profit, the greed of these major forces was evident. Yi Tian approached and entered the fortress. I want to enter the ruins of the Azure Sword sect and need to purchase a token. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 264, The Ruins of the Azure Sword sect. TL, Yuyong. PR. Etude. Inside the fortress. An emperor-level expert glanced at Yi Tian and said, 1 token for 100,000 yuan qi stones. 100,000 yuan qi stones might not be much for a powerful emperor, but for a saint, it was a small amount. Many poorer saints probably couldn't gather 100,000 yuan qi stones. Entering the relics of the Azure Sword sect didn't guarantee any gains. It was quite possible to come out empty-handed, which would be a huge loss. Yet, even so, there were still many saints, mostly swordsmen, eager to enter the relics of the Azure Sword sect. If they could acquire a powerful sword technique from the Azure Sword sect, selling it could fetch a hefty profit. Every time, some saints rose to prominence after obtaining treasures from the Azure Sword sect, surpassing other saints. Here are 100,000 yuan qi stones. Yi Tian took out 100,000 yuan qi stones and obtained a token. Immediately, he used the token to open the array enveloping the mountains and flew towards the peak where the Azure Sword sect was located. Landing in front of the mountain, Yi Tian stared at the defense array and walked straight through it. This defense array only blocked attacks and emperor-level experts. Saint-level experts could easily enter as long as they didn't activate their yuan force. Yi Tian restrained his aura and walked slowly forward. Whoosh! Yi Tian passed through the array screen and successfully entered the relics of the Azure Sword sect. Indeed, I can enter. With my talent, even though this body has only unlocked 86% of the deep brain domain, it's enough to be invincible at the saint level, Yi Tian thought confidently. The ruins of the Azure Sword sect were not small, covering about 100 square miles, with towering buildings located on this mountain peak, which seemed like a pillar of heaven and earth. Yi Tian's copy talent now covered a distance of 100,000 meters, easily encompassing the entire Azure Sword sect ruins. Boom! His copy talent spread out, and the talents of various saints appeared on Yi Tian's retinas. Most of them possessed swordsmanship talents. Intermediate swordsmanship talent. High-level swordsmanship talent. Basic swordsmanship talent. Top-level swordsmanship talent. The abundance of swordsmanship talents shocked Yi Tian. If these swordsmen were disciples of the Tian Pavilion, how strong it would be. Sadly, these swordsmen belonged to various forces and couldn't be recruited by the Tian Pavilion. Even if they were recruited, he couldn't guarantee their loyalty. Found it. Yi Tian's expression changed as he spotted the talent of the Holy Light Sword Saint. Human. Bari Kabul. Cultivation talent. Moonlight. Strength talent. Mystic. Speed talent. Pseudo-mystic, 60%. Defense talent. Pseudo-mystic, 70%. Light evasion talent. Top level. Swordsmanship talent. Morning Star. Judging from the Holy Light Sword Saint's talents, his mystic level strength talent and Morning Star level swordsmanship talent made it easy for him to overpower other saints and even most emperors. Such a saint in the War God Temple was also among the top geniuses, second only to the mysterious Imperial Son of the War God Temple. Yi Tian speculated that the Imperial Son might also have mystic-level talents in speed and defense, surpassing the Holy Light Sword Saint and hence earning the title of Imperial Son, making the latter's fame far less than that of the War God Temple's Imperial Son. Without hesitation, he copied. With a thought, Yi Tian copied the Morning Star-level swordsmanship talent of the Holy Light Sword Saint, achieving his goal. However, he didn't leave. Having come here with difficulty, how could he leave so easily? Yi Tian realized he lacked a god-level sword technique and wondered if there might be one here. Although the likelihood was small, it was worth hoping for. The location where the Holy Light Sword Saint is gathered with many saints must have great opportunities. Let's head there. Yi Tian flew over and soon arrived at a plaza. Behind the plaza was a majestic temple, and inside it, there was a huge stele surrounded by saints. Yi Tian landed on the plaza. The other saints glanced at him and then continued focusing on the stele. What is this stele? Yi Tian asked a nearby saint. The saint, guessing it was Yi Tian's first time at the Azure Sword Sect ruins, explained, this is the Azure Sword stele. It's said to contain great secrets, but no one knows what they are. However, it does contain various sword techniques. By concentrating on the Azure Sword stele, your consciousness will enter it, and you will see a sword technique. You must comprehend these techniques within a set time to proceed to more powerful ones. Those who comprehend a silver-level technique have the right to enter the temple. As for what's inside the temple, I don't know. Is that so? Yi Tian mused. After watching for half an hour, a white light enveloped the Holy Light Sword Saint. Many exclaimed, my God, the Holy Light Sword Saint has comprehended a silver-level sword technique and earned the chance to enter the temple. This is the first saint to enter the Azure Temple. As expected from the Holy Light Sword Saint from the War God Temple, a Morning Star level swordsmanship talent is truly impressive. 10 days to enter the Azure Temple, This speed would rank high in previous years. Alas, we don't even have the chance to enter. It can't be helped. Without a top-level or higher swordsmanship talent, there's no hope. In such a short time, with our talents, it's impossible to comprehend a silver-level technique. I wonder how many saints will manage to enter the Azure Temple this time. I guess no more than 5. 5, maybe only the Holy Light Sword Saint. Even top-level talents vary, and without good luck, it's hard to comprehend a silver-level technique in the allotted time. Who would want to spend all their time here? If they fail, they'll have nothing. True, the Azure Sword Sect ruins offer opportunities in other places too. Those with top-level swordsmanship talents naturally wouldn't want to put all their hopes on the Azure Sword Steel. Amidst the discussions, Yi Tian approached the Azure Sword Steel and gazed at it. Boom! An attraction force came from the steel, and Yi Tian allowed his consciousness to be pulled into it. In an instant, Yi Tian's consciousness entered the internal space of the Azure Sword Steel. This Azure Sword Steel is ingeniously designed, likely by a god-level creator. An emperor couldn't create such a miraculous steel, Yi Tian speculated. Swish! The content of a black iron-level sword technique appeared before him, and a mechanical voice stated, "Within 10 hours, cultivate this black iron-level sword technique to the entry level." It wasn't difficult to cultivate a black iron-level technique to the entry level in 10 hours. Clear Wind Sword Technique. Yi Tian quickly comprehended the essence of this black iron-level technique. With a thought, a sword appeared in his hand. Suddenly, a gust of wind turned into a blade of light slashing forward. Clear Wind Sword Technique, entry level achieved. freewebnovel.com. Then, the mechanical voice sounded again. Clear Wind Sword Technique entry level achieved. The next assessment, comprehend a bronze level sword technique to the entry level within 5 days. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 265, Morning Star level swordsmanship talent acquired, the Azure Sword Steel. TL, Yu Yong. PR, Etude. After the mechanical voice faded, the content of a bronze-level sword technique appeared. This was a bronze-level sword technique called the Water Blue Sword Technique. Mastering a bronze-level sword technique in 5 days is not too difficult for someone with top-tier sword talent, but almost impossible for those with high-level sword talent, unless one consumes a spiritual medicine that can temporarily enhance their comprehension. But to waste such a precious spiritual medicine just to pass this level is not worth the trade. Relying on his Morning Star level sword talent, Yi Tian could easily comprehend the Water Blue Sword Technique to the entry level, but it was somewhat a waste of time. He arrived later at the Azure Sword Sect ruins and had only 20 days left. Therefore, he couldn't afford to waste too much time on the bronze level sword technique. I'll use top-tier comprehension talent to understand it. Yi Tian decided. Boom! With top-tier comprehension talent activated, Yi Tian's comprehension instantly increased by 20 times and he quickly grasped the mysteries of the bronze-level sword technique, the Water Blue Sword Technique. An hour later, he successfully reached the entry level of the Water Blue Sword Technique. When Yi Tian executed the Water Blue Sword Technique, it was detected by the Water Blue Sword Steel, and the mechanical voice rang out again. Water Blue Sword Technique entry level achieved. Next round of assessment. Comprehend a silver-level sword technique to the entry level within 20 days. Then, a silver-level sword technique appeared before Yi Tian. This was a silver-level sword technique called the Cloud Soar Sword Technique. Normally, for a Morning Star level sword talent, comprehending a silver-level sword technique to the entry level without the aid of treasures like the Enlightenment Steel would take about 7 to 8 days, as was the case with the Holy Light Sword Saint. He completed 3 assessments in 10 days. If Yi Tian activated his top-tier comprehension talent, with a 20 times increase in comprehension, he could comprehend the silver-level sword technique, the Cloud Soar Sword Technique, to the entry level in just half a day. Thus, Yi Tian activated his top-tier comprehension talent and continued to study the silver-level Cloud Soar Sword Technique. Time passed bit by bit, and after 10 hours, a look of joy appeared on Yi Tian's face. He had successfully comprehended the silver-level Cloud Soar Sword Technique to the entry level in just 10 hours, which was indeed a pleasant surprise. Immediately, he executed the entry-level Cloud Soar Sword Technique. The Azure Sword Steel detected that Yi Tian had brought the silver-level Cloud Soar Sword Technique to the entry level and announced that he had passed the 3rd round of assessment. The mechanical voice sounded, "Congratulations on passing the 3rd round and earning the qualification to enter the Azure Divine Temple." Outside world. A white light enveloped Yi Tian on the Azure Sword Steel, indicating that he had successfully completed the silver-level sword technique within the allotted time. At this moment, many people were shocked. Who is this person who has also successfully comprehended the silver level sword technique? How come I remember he just arrived not long ago, or am I mistaken? No, he just arrived not long ago, it's only been half a day, he even asked me about the azure sword steel. How can someone be so incredible? Could it be cheating? Perhaps he pre-trained these sword techniques, which is why he passed the third round so quickly and got the opportunity to enter the Azure Divine Temple. It's impossible to cheat, everyone sees different sword techniques, unless someone trained countless sword techniques. But a person's energy is limited, who could train so many sword techniques? Yi Tian paid no attention to the discussions of others. At this moment, his consciousness was still in the space of the Azure Sword Steel. Because the mechanical voice spoke again, Cloud Soar Sword Technique Entry Level achieved. Next round of assessment, comprehend a gold level sword technique to the entry level within 1 month. Do you wish to continue? Comprehending a gold level sword technique to the entry level in 1 month, if one had the Enlightenment Steel, would be a very simple task. It was easily achievable by a Morning Star level sword talent, and could even be done in just a few days. But here, there is no Enlightenment Steel to rely on. One has to comprehend a gold level sword technique solely by themselves, which is impossible for a Morning Star level sword talent. Moreover, even if one could comprehend a gold level sword technique to the entry level in a month, there wouldn't be enough time. They are not disciples of the Azure Sword Sect, and the ruins of the sect are only open for a month. After that, they must leave, or they will be unable to exit. Therefore, even the Holy Light Sword Saint didn't dare to continue comprehending, as it would be a waste of time. But Yi Tian could continue, as he had a 20 times comprehension enhancement and a 10 times time acceleration ability. Previously, he had not used his time talent. Continue. Yi Tian thought. Whoosh. A gold level sword technique appeared, named the Flash Void Strike. Time talent, activate. Top tier comprehension talent, activate. After activating these two talents, Yi Tian began to rapidly comprehend the gold level sword technique, Flash Void Strike. In the outside world, 4 hours had passed, but under the effect of his time talent, Yi Tian had comprehended for 40 hours. With his 20 times comprehension enhancement, comprehending for 40 hours was equivalent to others comprehending for 800 hours, while a month only has 720 hours. Under such comprehension, Yi Tian finally mastered the gold level sword technique. Flash Void Strike. A golden light flashed in the space of the Azure Sword Steel, signifying Yi Tian's successful execution of Flash Void Strike. The Azure Sword Steel detected that Yi Tian had mastered Flash Void Strike to the entry level, and the mechanical voice announced, "Congratulations on passing the 4th round, the next assessment is to master a legendary level sword technique to the entry level within 3 months. At the same time, a golden light enveloped Yi Tian on the Azure Sword Steel, indicating he had passed the 4th round. Those who had never seen the golden light, the other saints, were stunned. Golden light, what does this mean? This person just passed the 3rd round, why hasn't his consciousness returned? He should have entered the Azure Divine Temple. Could it be that he is still being assessed? Could it be that he just passed another round? We don't know, we only know that the 3rd round involves comprehending a silver level sword technique, nothing more. The Holy Light Sword Saint might know some details, but unfortunately, he has entered the Divine Temple and is currently unreachable. Many people were guessing whether Yi Tian had passed the 4th round, but they found it hard to believe, thinking it impossible. Inside the Azure Sword Steel, Yi Tian continued to comprehend the legendary level sword technique. The appearing legendary level sword technique was named the Azure Sky Blade. Under 10 times time acceleration and 20 times comprehension enhancement, Yi Tian didn't need 3 months, he mastered the legendary level sword technique in just 1 day. Outside, Yi Tian was enveloped by a purple light from the Azure Sword Steel. This phenomenon attracted the attention of many saints, with various discussions ensuing. They were curious about when Yi Tian's consciousness would return from the Azure Sword Steel. They didn't dare attack Yi Tian. During the assessment, the body of the examinee is protected by the Azure Sword Steel. If someone attacks the examinee, the Sword Steel will release sword energy attacks, which even emperors dare not endure, and these emperors would be instantly killed. After comprehending the legendary level sword technique Azure Sky Blade to the entry level, Yi Tian was secretly looking forward to it. Will a god level sword technique appear? Yi Tian wondered. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 266, Continuous Visions, Yi Tian's Expectations. TL. Yu Yong. PR. Etude. Yi Tian had never possessed a god level sword technique, and thus he greatly yearned for one. Now, as he challenged the Azure Sword steel, he even encountered legendary level sword techniques. If he could continue to advance, perhaps he could encounter a god-level sword technique. freewebnovel.com. If there really were a god-level sword technique, that would be a major gain for him. Just the opportunity to learn a god-level sword technique was a chance not comparable to what others could have. Amidst his anticipation, a mechanical voice sounded, "Entry level completed. In the next round of assessment, comprehend a god-level sword technique to the entry level within a year. This round is the final assessment. Successful completion will earn a mysterious reward." Hearing this, Yi Tian was thrilled. Finally, he could learn a god-level sword technique, but the mention of the mysterious reward made him frown. The difficulty of comprehending a god-level sword technique to the entry level was immense. Firstly, to bring a god-level sword technique to the entry level, one must advance their sword Dao realm to 35%, while his current sword Dao realm was only around 28%. Undoubtedly, he was not yet qualified to comprehend a god-level sword technique to the entry level. Of course, the main reason was that his sword talent was only at the Morning Star level. Without the Moonlight level sword talent, it was impossible to comprehend the sword Dao realm beyond 30%. I still have 13 days. If I can merge the Morning Star level sword talent from the Holy Light Sword Saint, then I can upgrade to Moonlight level sword talent. If I can advance my sword Dao realm to 35% in the next few days, then there's a chance to comprehend a god level sword technique to the entry level. But Yi Tian was also very clear about how low this possibility was. His Claw Dao realm had already reached 30%, but to advance to 50% would require at least half a year, and that's only possible with the aid of the Enlightenment Steel. How could his sword Dao realm possibly advance to 35% in just a few days? Unless he could cheat. Never mind, even if I can't complete it and miss the mysterious reward, just getting a god-level sword technique is satisfying enough. That's what Yi Tian thought. Whoosh, the god-level sword technique finally appeared under Yi Tian's intense gaze. God-level sword technique, Starry Sky Annihilation. Yi Tian quickly skimmed through it, and his breathing became rapid. It's a god-level sword technique that involves space talent, similar to the legendary level technique Void Breaker. Any swordsman with space talent can reduce the requirements for comprehension. And this god-level sword technique doesn't require more than 35% in the sword Dao realm, only 30% is needed. At that moment, Yi Tian truly felt hope. In the next 10 days, he definitely had a chance to advance his sword Dao realm to 30%, provided he first merged into the Moonlight level sword talent. Once the 30% sword Dao realm was achieved, it was possible to comprehend the god-level sword technique to the entry level in a few days. Yi Tian didn't dare to waste time. He immediately began merging the Morning Star level sword talent, not caring about the others present. Boom, the Morning Star level sword talent merged with Yi Tian's own Morning Star level sword talent, and transformation began. Even though his consciousness was still behind the Azure Sword Steel, Yi Tian's body started to exhibit unusual changes. Veins protruded, sweat flowed down his body, and his face showed signs of pain. At this time, many saints were astonished at Yi Tian, not understanding what situation his consciousness encountered at the Azure Sword Steel to cause such a change. 10 minutes later, Yi Tian's complexion returned to normal. The merging and transformation ended. Check, Yi Tian saw his talent situation, and his sword talent had changed. Sword talent, Moonlight, phew, I finally raised my sword talent to Moonlight level. Yi Tian was excited but knew time was precious. Thus, he quickly activated his time talent and top-level comprehension talent, and began to comprehend the sword Dao realm. The Moonlight level sword talent significantly enhanced Yi Tian's comprehension of the sword Dao realm, even faster than his comprehension of the Claw Dao. Not enough, there's not enough time, Yi Tian estimated. So, he briefly returned his consciousness and took out some spirit medicines and treasures that could enhance comprehension, swallowing them in one gulp. These treasures, accumulated over time, were not originally intended for consumption, as they were unnecessary. He had planned to sell these treasures in the future, but now he had no choice but to use them. With the aid of many spirit medicines, Yi Tian's comprehension increased significantly, and with his top-level comprehension talent, the effect was amplified 20 times, naturally producing a more significant impact. Other saints, seeing Yi Tian consume so many precious spirit medicines, some of which were even coveted by them, realized the value of these medicines. They were worth many times more than a gold-level sword technique, even comparable to the value of several legendary-level sword techniques. What a waste, some secretly commented on Yi Tian. But there was nothing they could do, as these were Etienne's own spirit medicines, and they had no right to interfere. As time passed day by day, many saints left to seek opportunities elsewhere, but some remained. At that moment, Holy Light Sword Saint emerged, his face wearing a smile. Holy Light Sword Saint, you're out. A saint approached and informed the Holy Light Sword Saint about Etienne's situation. What? Golden and purple auras emitted from his body. Holy Light Sword Saint was shocked. The other saints didn't know what was happening, but how could he not know? After passing the third challenge, one could continue to the next, and the fourth challenge was to comprehend a gold-level sword technique to the entry level within a month. Knowing he had no hope of achieving this, he had given up. But from Etienne's situation, it seemed he had passed the fourth challenge and possibly even the fifth. Gold-level sword techniques, legendary-level sword techniques, he passed all of them. How is it possible in such a short time? Holy Light Sword Saint was struck, unable to believe it. But soon, his expression changed. If Etienne had comprehended a legendary-level sword technique to the entry level, passing the fifth challenge, then it meant Etienne was currently comprehending God-level sword techniques. Some emperors of the War God Temple had speculated that the Azure Sword Steel possessed God-level sword techniques, but who would dare to guarantee it? If true, does this mean he has seen a God-level sword technique? Holy Light Sword Saint's breathing became rapid. Although he only had a moonlight-level sword talent and couldn't comprehend a God-level sword technique, the value of such a technique was unimaginable. He believed the sect behind the War God Steel would be extremely interested in a God-level sword technique and even willing to pay a high price for it. HMPH, this person must also know about the existence of a God-level sword technique, so he found a way to bypass the assessment. Although it's unclear how he did it, it's definitely not through his own comprehension. Even someone with a moonlight-level sword talent couldn't possibly pass 5 challenges in such a short time, he must have cheated. Holy Light Sword Saint speculated secretly. First, I must go out and inform the emperors of the War God Temple, this person must not be allowed to leave. Holy Light Sword Saint left, not even exploring other areas. This time, his gains were already substantial. Moreover, the God-level sword technique on Etienne was the most important. If he reported this news, once they captured Etienne and extracted the content of the God-level sword technique, it would be a great achievement. Swish, Holy Light Sword Saint quietly left the Azure Sword Sect ruins and returned to the outside world. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 267, God-level sword technique, Starry Sky Annihilation. TL, Yuyong. PR, Etude. After leaving the relics of the Azure Sword Sect, the Holy Light Sword Saint immediately contacted an Emperor-level figure from the War God Temple to report the events that transpired within the sect's relics. This matter garnered significant attention from the higher-ups of the War God Temple. Shortly thereafter, a meeting was convened at the War God Temple. The outcome of the meeting was to capture Etienne. However, deploying strong individuals from the Emperor's list might attract the attention of other forces. If the strong individuals from other forces were to intervene, it could disrupt their capture operation. At this point, the master of the War God Temple, the Golden War Emperor, spoke up, "Let my son go," accompanied by 2 other Emperor-level figures. This should not attract the attention of other forces. Sending the Imperial Son, isn't that a bit risky? That mysterious martial artist's background is unknown, but he certainly possesses a sword talent above the Morning Star level. His strength might not be inferior to the Imperial Son. An Emperor-level figure voiced his concern. The Golden War Emperor laughed heartily. That was my son before. Now, he has successfully broken through his first physical limit, and I have bestowed upon him a moonlight-level sword. With his strength, capturing a saint is quite simple. Besides, who would dare to make a move against my son? Upon hearing that the Imperial Son had entered the Emperor level, the others were surprised. If the Imperial Son has already reached the Emperor level, then there should be no problem. Several Emperor-level figures agreed with the Golden War Emperor's suggestion. Immediately, the Golden War Emperor informed his son, Pisharis, of the matter. Deep within the Golden Temple, a golden-haired young man, his body seemingly cast in gold, was meditating. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and smiled. "Father has finally allowed me to go out. Haha, my name, Pisharis, will be known throughout the Earth Immortal Realm." Boom! A powerful Emperor-level aura spread out, causing the space around to subtly tremble. When he stepped out of his residence, 2 Emperor-level figures arrived. Fried greets the Imperial Son. Jonathan greets the Imperial Son. The 2 Emperor-level figures spoke respectfully. The 2 emperors are too kind. This time, Father has sent you to accompany me on a significant task. Let's hurry, so as not to waste time. The imperial son said. Yes, the two emperor-level figures responded. Then, they traveled via a teleportation array, crossing several cities, and finally arrived at the Azure City. Upon arriving in the Azure City, they settled down, not heading to the relics of the Azure Sword Sect, while the Holy Light Sword Saint was on the lookout outside the relics, ready to report any situation. Inside the Azure Sword Sect's relic, at the Azure Sword Steel, Yi Tian was still contemplating the Sword Dao. With the help of several spirit medicines that could enhance comprehension, along with the effects of a 10x time acceleration, 20x comprehension enhancement, and his Moonlight level sword talent, Yi Tian's Sword Dao realm was slowly improving. On the 16th day, Yi Tian finally improved his Sword Dao realm to a 30% level. At that moment, he met the cultivation requirements for the God-level sword technique, Starry Sky Annihilation. Only 3 days left. Is it be enough to gain entry-level mastery in Starry Sky Annihilation? Yi Tian wasn't sure, but he had to try. Fortunately, this involved a God-level sword technique related to space. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the qualification to cultivate it. He had already been blessed by the heavens, so he had to give it his all and try. If successful, he would obtain that mysterious reward. Comprehend, comprehend, comprehend. With his time talent and top-level comprehension talent, Yi Tian slowly absorbed the essence of the God-level sword technique, experimenting with each move, and understanding the mysteries of the God-level sword technique. Fortunately, Yi Tian's space talent had already reached the pseudo-mystic level, allowing him to comprehend the mysteries of space. Otherwise, it would indeed be difficult to cultivate the God-level sword technique, Starry Sky Annihilation. If it were just a top-level space talent, Yi Tian would not have the confidence to cultivate Starry Sky Annihilation to the entry level in 3 days. But now, his pseudo-mystic level space talent gave him a glimmer of hope. 1 day passed, 2 days passed. On the 3rd day, there were hardly any saints left in front of the Azure Sword Steel. They had all left to try their luck elsewhere. Yi Tian stood alone in front of the Azure Sword Steel, like a stone statue, motionless. As the time for the closure of the Azure Sword Steel drew near, Yi Tian still had not successfully cultivated the God-level sword technique, Starry Sky Annihilation. Soon, only 3 hours remained. However, Yi Tian had completely lost his sense of time. His entire focus was on cultivating the God-level sword technique, oblivious to the closing deadline. 2 hours. 1 hour. Then, with only 15 minutes left, a bright light suddenly appeared in Yi Tian's mind. He had comprehended it. Starry Sky Annihilation. Yi Tian, wielding a sword, slashed down from the void, making the entire starry sky seem as if it were about to collapse. Boom! With one slash, everything turned desolate, and the stars were extinguished. Space rifts spread throughout the void, turning this area into numerous space fragments. This was the God-level sword technique that could shatter space. What a powerful sword technique! It can't be described by mere attack power. Shattering space, its destructive power is too great, far surpassing any legendary level sword technique. Yi Tian exclaimed. The Azure Sword Steel detected Yi Tian's use of Starry Sky Annihilation, and a mechanical voice announced, "Congratulations on passing the final challenge and completing the assessment. You have obtained a mysterious reward." As soon as the voice ended, a light orb merged into Yi Tian's consciousness and soul. Before Yi Tian could examine the contents of the light orb, a repulsive force came. The next moment, Yi Tian was teleported out of the Azure Sword Sect's relics, appearing in the mountain range outside the peak. What a pity, Yi Tian sighed. He regretted missing out on the Azure Divine Temple, where he could have chosen some treasures. However, because he had stayed at the Azure Sword Steel until now, he had missed his chance and was expelled before even entering the Divine Temple. However, thinking of the God-level sword technique, Starry Sky Annihilation, and the mysterious reward, he was no longer concerned. The treasures in the Azure Divine Temple probably couldn't compare to the God-level sword technique and the mysterious reward. Whether he got them or not didn't really matter. Time to head back. Yi Tian left the mountain range, planning to return to Azure City. But at that moment, he sensed a malevolent intention. Holy Light Sword Saint. Yi Tian looked towards a saint-level figure not far away, recognizing the Holy Light Sword Saint. He felt malice from the Holy Light Sword Saint. His top-level good and evil talent couldn't be wrong. The Holy Light Sword Saint indeed harbored great malice towards him, even more intense than the 5 saints who had previously intended robbed him. Does the Holy Light Sword Saint intend to harm me? Yi Tian realized. He had never had any contact with the Holy Light Sword Saint, and his current body, disguised as Zhao, had a new appearance thanks to his disguise talent, so the Holy Light Sword Saint couldn't recognize him. There was naturally no enmity between them. That left only one possibility. I've attracted attention. Yi Tian thought to himself. He had passed the final challenge of the Azure Sword Steel, a fact probably unknown to others. However, his completion of the 4th and 5th levels must have been noticed, as the steel would emit light to envelop his body when passing those levels, signifying recognition. Other saints witnessing this would naturally speculate. And since the Holy Light Sword Saint had passed the 4th level, he must know about the existence of the 4th and 5th levels of the Azure Sword Steel. Perhaps he suspects that I have seen the God-level sword technique and wants to harm me. Yi Tian pondered, but just the Holy Light Sword Saint alone probably wouldn't dare to make a move against him. There might be Emperor-level figures behind the Holy Light Sword Saint. Just then, in the distance, 3 Emperor-level figures flew over. Yi Tian looked towards them, sensing the intense malice emanating from these 3 Emperor-level figures. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 268, Sword Technique That Shatters Space. TL, Yu Yong. PR, Etude. In the blink of an eye, the 3 Emperor-level fighters had closed into within 100,000 meters of Yi Tian. At this moment, Yi Tian enveloped his opponents with his talent-copying ability. The talents of 2 of the Emperor-level fighters were not particularly impressive, and their cultivation levels weren't very high either, having only broken through their physical limits 6 or 7 times. However, the Central Emperor-level fighter, despite having only broken his physical limit once, possessed a formidable talent, far surpassing that of the Holy Light Sword Saint. Human, Piscerus, Cultivation Talent, Dawn, Strength Talent, Mystic, Speed Talent, Mystic, Defense Talent, Mystic, Swordmanship Talent, Morning Star, Golden Battle Body Talent, Top, Flame Talent, Top, Tracking Talent, Top, Remarkable Talent. His name is Piscerus, likely the imperial son of the War God Temple, son of the Golden War Emperor. Rumors say he's at the Saint level, but it seems he has just stepped into the Emperor level. Yi Tian thought to himself. It was clear that the Holy Light Sword Saint had informed the War God Temple, which likely didn't want to draw the attention of other forces, hence only sending the Golden Imperial son Piscerus and 2 other Emperor-level fighters. Such a force was more than enough to capture any Saint-level fighter, a surefire plan. Unfortunately, Yi Tian was not at the Saint level. Although his body was of the Saint level, his talent was too astonishing, and thus he could not be classified as a Saint level. Whoosh! The aura of the 3 Emperor-level fighters enveloped Yi Tian, closing in on him. Imperial Sun, make it a quick battle. One of the Emperor-level fighters reminded the Golden Imperial Sun. The Golden Imperial Sun nodded, aware of the limited time. If other forces intervened, capturing Yi Tian would become difficult. Boom! The Golden Imperial Sun transformed into a golden statue, his entire body shimmering gold, the Golden Battle Body. Under the amplification of the Golden Battle Body, his speed, defense, and strength all increased, and his recovery power was incredibly strong. Even if heavily injured, he could recover quickly. This was the power of the Golden Battle Body. The Golden Imperial Sun, wielding a moonlight great sword, aimed a strike at one of Yi Tian's arms, clearly intending to inflict heavy injury rather than kill. After all, he wanted to capture Yi Tian and extract the secrets of the God-level sword technique. Killing Yi Tian would render him valueless. Moonlight Great Sword. Yi Tian's mind raced. Such a sword was something he didn't possess. What a pity. Yi Tian knew he couldn't preserve this body. Although he could kill these 3 Emperor-level fighters, the Golden War Emperor would surely act. If he clung to this body, his original form might also be endangered. Thus, even if he seized the Moonlight Great Sword, he couldn't keep it. War God Temple, you dare to attack me, then lose your Imperial Son. Yi Tian coldly thought to himself. Battling an Emperor level with a Saint level body, ordinary means would certainly fail. God level Strength Talent. Yi Tian's strength increased 300-fold in an instant under the augmentation of the God level Strength Talent. He then drew a Morning Star Grade Sword and prepared to execute a God level sword technique. You must be after my gains from the Azure Sword technique, then behold. Yi Tian sneered. Starry sky, annihilation. With one strike, the starry sky seemed to extinguish in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. The void in front shattered, turning into numerous spatial fragments. The Golden Imperial Sun and the other 2 Emperor-level fighters, along with the Holy Light Sword Saint, were all within this range. Instantly, the holy light sword saint was torn into countless pieces, then annihilated by the spatial fragments into nothingness. Imperial Sun. Escape quickly. The two Emperor-level fighters tried to protect the Golden Imperial Sun but were swiftly killed. The Golden Imperial Sun donned a golden battle armor, a defensive moonlight-grade artifact. Unfortunately, even the strongest defense has its limits. Yi Tian's starry sky annihilation was able to obliterate the moonlight-grade armor, and although the Imperial Sun inside the armor survived for a brief moment, his body was soon annihilated, leaving only a moonlight-grade sword and armor floating in the fragmented space. In the distance. At first, when they sensed the appearance of the Golden Imperial Sun, they were surprised, wondering why he was here at this time. But when the Golden Imperial Sun fell, they realized the severity of the situation. However, they did not intervene to capture Yi Tian. As emperors from foreign forces, they naturally wouldn't concern themselves with the life and death of the locals, but they still reported the incident upwards. Immediately, in the War God Temple, the Golden War Emperor received the news. "What? My son is dead? Impossible!" The Golden War Emperor roared in rage. But after repeated confirmations, he became frenzied and hurriedly used the War God Temple's teleportation array to rush to Azure City. Outside Azure City, Yi Tian didn't enter the city but fled in another direction. He feared that if he entered the city and the Golden War Emperor, in his madness, decided to destroy the city without regard for the consequences, his original body would be in danger. He escaped in another direction, then abandoned his saint-level body. Soon after, the Golden War Emperor arrived. He reached the place where the Golden Imperial Sun had perished. The fractured space there was healing, and the remnants of the Golden Imperial Sun's presence lingered. No, the Golden War Emperor confirmed that his son, Piscius, couldn't have survived such an attack. "Damn you, you're dead," the Golden War Emperor exclaimed angrily. Members of the War God Temple nearby had been keeping an eye on Yi Tian, so he knew which direction Yi Tian had fled. Swoosh, the Golden War Emperor chased after Yi Tian. As an 8-star Emperor-level Great Emperor, his speed was incredibly fast. Yi Tian's saint-level body, despite possessing God-level extreme speed talent, couldn't fly too fast. Very soon, the Golden War Emperor caught up with Yi Tian's saint-level body. A saint? Could it be that such an attack was executed using a God-level sword technique? The Golden War Emperor was astonished. It now seemed that Yi Tian had not only seen the God-level sword technique but also learned it. Such talent was against the heavens. He must be killed. The Golden War Emperor showed a hint of fear. If Yi Tian was not killed and allowed to grow, he could truly threaten his life in the future. For revenge and to maintain his position, he couldn't allow Yi Tian to live. Die. The Golden War Emperor, holding a war spear, pierced through the void, aiming at Yi Tian. Even without spatial talent, this strike disturbed space, as if solidifying the surrounding area. This was the effect of power reaching a level akin to spatial confinement. The Golden War Emperor's strike reached the standard of an 8-star Emperor level. Even if Yi Tian were in his original form, he would likely be heavily injured or even instantly killed, let alone now in just a saint-level body. Unblockable. There was no hope of blocking it. As the war spear descended, Yi Tian activated his top-level soul transfer talent, returning his soul instantly to his original body. The saint-level body was hit by the Golden War spear, completely shattering into countless pieces. He's dead. The Golden War Emperor stepped forward, carefully checked, and confirmed that Yi Tian was indeed dead beyond recovery, then regretted a little. His son was dead and couldn't be revived, but he should have captured Yi Tian and extracted the secrets of the God-level sword technique. Regrettably, in his anger and fear of Yi Tian's talent, he had struck with full force. Inside Azure City, Yi Tian smiled slightly. The Golden War Emperor probably thinks I'm dead, which is good. Until I complete my great transformation, I am indeed no match for the Golden War Emperor. Then, he thought of the mysterious reward light orb. Let's see what this light orb really is. Yi Tian was immensely curious. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 269, Fall of the Golden Imperial Sun, Madness of the Golden War Emperor. TL. Yuyong. PR. Etude. The light orb was still inside Yi Tian's soul, and thus, when his soul returned, the light orb naturally did not disappear. Yi Tian immersed his consciousness into the light orb, beginning to examine the information within it. After a while, Yi Tian opened his eyes, filled with shock. The contents of this light orb were not any sword techniques, but the path to godhood, a clear path to becoming a god, including methods for tempering the godly body, condensing divine power, and consolidating the divine soul. Previously, Yi Tian had obtained a secret technique for condensing divine power but lacked the other two techniques. Now, having acquired the three corresponding secret techniques for divine power, body, and soul, his journey to reaching the godly level would be much faster. However, what Yi Tian truly valued was not these three techniques, but the path to godhood introduced in the light orb. The general method to become a god involved breaking through the body's limits 10 times and then consolidating the godly body, power, and soul to reach the godly level. But this was the simplest method. After breaking the body's limits 10 times, each additional break would increase the body's strength by 10,000 dragon power. Many emperors with decent potential would attempt to reach the god level after breaking through their body's limits the 13th or 14th time. After all, breaking the body's limits 10 times would boost the body's strength to 10,000 dragon power, 11 times to 20,000, 12 times to 30,000, and 13 times to 40,000. The difference between 40,000 and 50,000 dragon power was minimal, so some emperors who found it hard to continue breaking their limits did not wish to waste more time doing so, believing it to be unnecessary. But now, Yi Tian had learned a secret from the light orb. Breaking the body's limits 20 times would result in a cosmic gift. This gift could elevate any talent level and help emperors forge the most perfect foundation. It also allowed for the swift transformation of the godly body, power, and soul, creating a flawless version compared to any other method. Those who broke their body's limits 20 times were also known as the children of the universe. Breaking the bodily limit 20 times. Yi Tian was tempted. Had he not known this secret, he might have attempted to reach god level after the 15th or 16th body limit break. But now, he wanted to aim for the 20th body limit break, to bear the title of a child of the universe. This time, I've really hit the jackpot. Yi Tian laughed wildly. Now, having understood the Earth Immortal Realm and acquired a godly level sword technique, he was ready to return to Zonghai Super Base. The Earth Immortal Realm was good, but it was not his main stage yet. Immediately, Yi Tian left the inn, reached a corner in Azure City, and then activated the Earth Immortal Ring, preparing to return. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Spatial runes appeared on the Earth Immortal Ring, forming a temporary spatial teleportation array, not a stable one. Yi Tian continuously transmitted power, quickly stabilizing this temporary teleportation array. Open. With a bang, Yi Tian vanished from Azure City, leaving the Earth Immortal Realm. At the Tianfu Super Base, Yi Tian suddenly appeared near the Glory God Temple. The transmission was slightly off. Yi Tian looked at his location and said, if the location had been exactly on point, he would have appeared inside the Glory God Temple, not outside. Usually, one would return to the same place they entered the Earth Immortal Realm. However, the Earth Immortal Ring could not achieve perfect teleportation, so being able to return from the Earth Immortal Realm was already quite remarkable. Yi Tian did not linger in the Tianfu Super Base. He went to the teleportation hall and took the teleportation array back to Zonghai Super Base. Upon returning, the first thing Yi Tian did was to see his wife, Empress Yu. Moon God Sect, Yuaa, I'm back. Yi Tian embraced Empress Yu, gently saying. Good to have you back. Empress Yu joyfully embraced Yi Tian, her face full of excitement. Husband, what did the Glory God Temple want from you? Why were you gone for so long? Empress Yu asked. She had thought Yi Tian would only be gone for a day or two, but it turned out to be almost a month, and she couldn't even contact him. She had even personally visited the Tianfu Super Base but couldn't find him. During this time, she was extremely worried. I went to the Earth Immortal Realm. Yi Tian honestly replied. Although the Earth Immortal Realm prohibits its disclosure to other emperors, Yi Tian didn't intend to abide by this rule. In fact, many major powers send their younger generation to the Earth Immortal Realm through teleportation arrays. They might not have the Earth Immortal Ring, but they can leave through the headquarters, cross-realm teleportation arrays. Some great emperors from the Glory God Temple had even sneaked their entire families into the Earth Immortal Realm, just that they never mentioned these to Yi Tian, as he was not a member of the Glory God Temple. Thus, Yi Tian revealing information about the Earth Immortal Realm was not a big deal. The Earth Immortal Realm, what is that place? Empress Yu expressed her curiosity. Yi Tian, holding Empress Yu, explained everything about the Earth Immortal Realm to her. There's actually such a small world. Empress Yu was very surprised. She had never heard of the Earth Immortal Realm before, and if it weren't for Yi Tian's mention, she probably would have never known about such secrets in her lifetime. However, she didn't have much desire for the Earth Immortal Realm. It seemed peaceful, but it wasn't really peaceful, and moreover, its resources were scarce compared to those on Earth. It was merely appealing for its trade opportunities with other external powers. Husband, why don't those external powers enter the main world of Earth? If they did, with their strength, they should be able to gather more resources, right? Empress Yu curiously asked. I'm not sure, maybe due to some restrictions or fears, Yi Tian guessed. Husband, are you going back to the Earth Immortal Realm anytime soon? Empress Yu looked at Yi Tian and asked. Yi Tian lightly scratched Empress Yu's nose and smiled, saying, not for now, I will stay and cultivate with my dear Yue, alright. Okay, Empress Yu smiled happily. In the following days, Yi Tian and Empress Yu often cultivated in seclusion in the Tian Pavilion's cultivation room. Empress Yu mainly focused on absorbing lunar power to break her body's limits, as well as comprehending sword intent and cultivating sword techniques. As for Yi Tian, besides aiming to break through his 10th body limit, he also needed to comprehend the Claw Dao and Sword Dao. In the Sword Dao, Yi Tian's achievements weren't high. The reason he could cultivate a godly level sword technique was due to his luck in encountering a space-related godly level sword technique, which lowered the requirements. In the Claw Dao, he was still some distance away from cultivating a godly level claw technique. Even though he possessed a godly level claw technique, he was unable to cultivate it, which made him anxious. Time passed day by day, and both Yi Tian and Empress Yu steadily progressed. 1 month later, on this day, Yi Tian sensed the shackles of his 10th body limit in the unknown. Finally going to break through. Yi Tian's face showed a smile, and he felt extremely excited. Once he broke through the 10th body limit, his body would undergo a significant transformation, and his physical strength would surge to 10,000 dragon power. His strength would increase more than tenfold. By then, his combat power would surpass that of a 7-star emperor, possibly reaching an 8-star emperor level, and even among the 8-star emperors, he would be an extraordinary one, second only to the 9-star emperors. This was no joke. After all, with his godly level power talent and godly level sword technique, the amplification was too terrifying. This time, he used a massive amount of Yuan Qi and the blood of emperor-level ferocious beasts to break his body's limit, fully prepared for everything. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 270, Returning to Zonghai, 10th Body Limit Break. TL, Yu Yang. PR, Etude. The light orb was still inside Yi Tian's soul, and thus, when his soul returned, the light orb naturally did not disappear. Yi Tian immersed his consciousness into the light orb, beginning to examine the information within it. After a while, Yi Tian opened his eyes, filled with shock. The contents of this light orb were not any sword techniques, but the path to godhood, a clear path to becoming a god, including methods for tempering the godly body, condensing divine power, and consolidating the divine soul. Previously, Yi Tian had obtained a secret technique for condensing divine power but lacked the other 2 techniques. Now, having acquired the 3 corresponding secret techniques for divine power, body, and soul, his journey to reaching the godly level would be much faster. However, what Yi Tian truly valued was not these 3 techniques, but the path to godhood introduced in the light orb. The general method to become a god involved breaking through the body's limits 10 times and then consolidating the godly body, power, and soul to reach the godly level. But this was the simplest method. After breaking the body's limits 10 times, each additional break would increase the body's strength by 10,000 dragon power. Many emperors with decent potential would attempt to reach the god level after breaking through their body's limits the 13th or 14th time. After all, breaking the body's limits 10 times would boost the body's strength to 10,000 dragon power, 11 times to 20,000, 12 times to 30,000, and 13 times to 40,000. The difference between 40,000 and 50,000 dragon power was minimal, so some emperors who found it hard to continue breaking their limits did not wish to waste more time doing so, believing it to be unnecessary. But now, Yi Tian had learned a secret from the light orb. Breaking the body's limits 20 times would result in a cosmic gift. This gift could elevate any talent level and help emperors forge the most perfect foundation. It also allowed for the swift transformation of the godly body, power, and soul, creating a flawless version compared to any other method. Those who broke their body's limits 20 times were also known as the children of the universe. Breaking the bodily limit 20 times. Yi Tian was tempted. Had he not known this secret, he might have attempted to reach god level after the 15th or 16th body limit break. But now, he wanted to aim for the 20th body limit break, to bear the title of a child of the universe. This time, I've really hit the jackpot. Yi Tian laughed wildly. Now, having understood the Earth Immortal Realm and acquired a godly level sword technique, he was ready to return to Zonghai Super Base. The Earth Immortal Realm was good, but it was not his main stage yet. Immediately, Yi Tian left the inn, reached a corner in Azure City, and then activated the Earth Immortal Ring, preparing to return. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Spatial runes appeared on the Earth Immortal Ring, forming a temporary spatial teleportation array, not a stable one. Yi Tian continuously transmitted power, quickly stabilizing this temporary teleportation array. Open. With a bang, Yi Tian vanished from Azure City, leaving the Earth Immortal Realm. At the Tianfu Super Base, Yi Tian suddenly appeared near the Glory God Temple. The transmission was slightly off. Yi Tian looked at his location and said, if the location had been exactly on point, he would have appeared inside the Glory God Temple, not outside. Usually, one would return to the same place they entered the Earth Immortal Realm. However, the Earth Immortal Ring could not achieve perfect teleportation, so being able to return from the Earth Immortal Realm was already quite remarkable. Yi Tian did not linger in the Tianfu Super Base. He went to the teleportation hall and took the teleportation array back to Zonghai Super Base, freewebnovel.com. Upon returning, the first thing Yi Tian did was to see his wife, Empress Yu. Moon God Sect, UAA, I'm back. Yi Tian embraced Empress Yu, gently saying, good to have you back. Empress Yu joyfully embraced Yi Tian, her face full of excitement. Husband, what did the Glory God Temple want from you? Why were you gone for so long? Empress Yu asked. She had thought Yi Tian would only be gone for a day or two, but it turned out to be almost a month, and she couldn't even contact him. She had even personally visited the Tianfu Super Base but couldn't find him. During this time, she was extremely worried. I went to the Earth Immortal Realm. Yi Tian honestly replied. Although the Earth Immortal Realm prohibits its disclosure to other emperors, Yi Tian didn't intend to abide by this rule. In fact, many major powers send their younger generation to the Earth Immortal Realm through teleportation arrays. They might not have the Earth Immortal Ring, but they can leave through the headquarters, cross-realm teleportation arrays. Some great emperors from the Glory God Temple had even sneaked their entire families into the Earth Immortal Realm, just that they never mentioned these to Yi Tian, as he was not a member of the Glory God Temple. Thus, Yi Tian revealing information about the Earth Immortal Realm was not a big deal. The Earth Immortal Realm, what is that place? Empress Yu expressed her curiosity. Yi Tian, holding Empress Yu, explained everything about the Earth Immortal Realm to her. There's actually such a small world. Empress Yu was very surprised. She had never heard of the Earth Immortal Realm before, and if it weren't for Yi Tian's mention, she probably would have never known about such secrets in her lifetime. However, she didn't have much desire for the Earth Immortal Realm. It seemed peaceful, but it wasn't really peaceful, and moreover, its resources were scarce compared to those on Earth. It was merely appealing for its trade opportunities with other external powers. Husband, why don't those external powers enter the main world of Earth? If they did, with their strength, they should be able to gather more resources, right? Empress Yu curiously asked. I'm not sure, maybe due to some restrictions or fears, Yi Tian guessed. Husband, are you going back to the Earth Immortal Realm anytime soon? Empress Yu looked at Yi Tian and asked. Yi Tian lightly scratched Empress Yu's nose and smiled, saying, not for now, I will stay and cultivate with my dear Yuei, alright. Okay, Empress Yu smiled happily. In the following days, Yi Tian and Empress Yu often cultivated in seclusion in the Tian Pavilion's cultivation room. Empress Yu mainly focused on absorbing lunar power to break her body's limits, as well as comprehending sword intent and cultivating sword techniques. As for Yi Tian, besides aiming to break through his 10th body limit, he also needed to comprehend the Claw Dao and Sword Dao. In the Sword Dao, Yi Tian's achievements weren't high. The reason he could cultivate a godly level sword technique was due to his luck in encountering a space-related godly level sword technique, which lowered the requirements. In the Claw Dao, he was still some distance away from cultivating a godly level claw technique. Even though he possessed a godly level claw technique, he was unable to cultivate it, which made him anxious. Time passed day by day, and both Yi Tian and Empress Yu steadily progressed. 1 month later, on this day, Yi Tian sensed the shackles of his 10th body limit in the unknown. Finally going to break through. Yi Tian's face showed a smile, and he felt extremely excited. Once he broke through the 10th body limit, his body would undergo a significant transformation, and his physical strength would surge to 10,000 dragon power. His strength would increase more than tenfold. By then, his combat power would surpass that of a 7-star emperor, possibly reaching an 8-star emperor level, and even among the 8-star emperors, he would be an extraordinary one, second only to the 9-star emperors. This was no joke. After all, with his godly level power talent and godly level sword technique, the amplification was too terrifying. This time, he used a massive amount of yuan qi and the blood of emperor-level ferocious beasts to break his body's limit, fully prepared for everything. Leave some feedback in my Discord. Web links. Please consider reading at Chapter 271, Breaking the 10th Body Limit, The Great Transformation Completed. TL. Yu Yang. PR. Etude. Breaking the body's limits for the 10th time is not something even the top cultivation chambers, gathering yuan qi, can suffice. The speed at which these chambers gather yuan qi is limited, and breaking through the 10th limit requires absorbing a massive amount of yuan qi in a short time, which top cultivation chambers simply cannot fulfill. Recall that, in the world of ferocious beasts, the beast overlords hunted numerous ferocious beasts to complete their bloodline transformation, solely for energy. Now, Yi Tian, aiming to break his body's 10th limit, naturally needed to prepare a vast amount of resources. Therefore, he placed a huge amount of emperor-level ferocious beast blood collected earlier in the cultivation chamber, forming a blood pool, and also placed about 1,000,000 yuan qi stones around it. Such preparations were necessary to ensure there was no lack of energy for the ascension, otherwise, insufficient energy could lead to significant aftereffects, damaging the foundation. Begin the breakthrough. Yi Tian sat cross-legged, mobilizing yuan qi to assault the 10th body limit. His cultivation talent was supreme, making breaking the body limit not too difficult. A few hours later. Crack, crack, crack. Sounds of shattering echoed from within Yi Tian's body, signifying the breaking of invisible shackles. Boom, the yuan qi in the cultivation chamber was absorbed in a breath, depleting it. The top cultivation chamber's yuan qi gathering array began frantically drawing in external yuan qi, but this process was significantly slower. Yuan qi stones, consume. A large number of yuan qi stones transformed into a vast amount of yuan qi, which Yi Tian absorbed into his body, helping him stabilize the great transformation after breaking the 10th body limit. The great transformation required an enormous amount of yuan qi to consume. 1,000,000 yuan qi stones were absorbed, yet the transformation was not complete. Then, Yi Tian devoured the vast amount of emperor-level ferocious beast blood. Soon, the massive quantity of emperor-level ferocious beast blood was also fully absorbed. Just a bit more. Reluctantly, Yi Tian took out another 300,000 yuan qi stones to satisfy the energy needed for the great transformation. A single great transformation nearly depleted all of Yi Tian's yuan qi stones. After all, he didn't usually collect yuan qi stones, and the ones he had were mostly plundered from those he defeated. However, even with the depletion of yuan qi stones, completing the great transformation left Yi Tian highly satisfied. After a few more hours, Yi Tian completely stabilized the realm of the 10th body limit. Yi Tian moved his body and clenched his fists, causing a slight tremor in space. Indeed, my body strength has reached 10,000 dragon power, while the 9th body limit was only 900 dragon power. Normally, breaking the 10th body limit would only yield 1,000 dragon power, but with the great transformation, my physical quality has increased tenfold, achieving 10,000 dragon power. Bro, WTF is this exponential growth XD? Yi Tian muttered. Breaking the 10th body limit and completing the great transformation, his strength as an emperor-level entity was more than 10 times that of the 9th body limit. Thus, after breaking the 10th body limit, an emperor's strength would skyrocket. Now, Yi Tian's power had reached an unbelievable level, far beyond what an ordinary emperor level could imagine. With a body strength of 10,000 dragon power, after amplifying with yuan force, it could reach 20,000 dragon power. With his god-level strength talent, it could amplify 300 times, and his perfect legendary claw and sword techniques could amplify 100 times. He had also learned a god-level sword technique. Though he was only at the beginner level, its power was incomparable to perfect level techniques, amplifying over 200 times. Thus, his strongest attack power reached 1.2 billion dragon power. Such a terrifying force could shatter 10,000 li of rivers and mountains in a single strike. On the previous Earth, he could have exploded the planet with one hit. Even a weak god-level entity could not match Yi Tian's attack power. But attack power is just one aspect of strength. Speed and defense are also crucial parts. Having broken the 10th body limit, my attack power, speed, and defense have far surpassed before. In terms of combat power, I should be comparable to the strongest fighters below 8-star Emperor level, not weaker than the Golden War Emperor, and perhaps even stronger. Yi Tian estimated. However, he was not arrogant enough to disregard everything. For instance, among the external forces, there were 9-star Emperor-level entities, and their planets even housed God-level powerhouses. Thus, Yi Tian's current strength could only dominate Earth, but was not yet invincible.